Hi, I'm Gabriel from GabrielSeanWallace.com, and in this video I'm going to talk about distortion, deletion, and generalization in the NLP meta model, and how you can use the meta model to raise your own self-awareness. All right, so what are we talking about here? I've got a lot of notes and a lot of examples for you about this here on my computer. So if I do look down, I want to keep myself on track. All right. So where did this come from in the first place? Chomsky, okay? Noam Chomsky, who developed his theory of transformational grammar back in the 1950s. All right. And he worked out with his theory that there is a deep structure of meaning underneath the surface structure of meaning that comes out in our linguistic communication. All right. So in other words, when we use a sentence like, for example, I don't like it. If we say I don't like it, what are we talking about, right? All that information is in the deep structure of the communication. So, what is it, first of all, right? What are we talking about? What don't I like? And what don't I like about it? Why don't I like it? And what exactly do we mean by like? Do we mean like in the sense like, oh, I like you? Or do we mean like in the sense of a food? Or when we say I don't like it, do we mean like we really don't like it? We're disgusted by it? Or do we mean I don't like it, I love it, right? Or when don't you like it? There's a lot of information beneath that surface, right? So this is the deep structure, and we often delete information, we distort information, or we generalize information, right? When we pull things up from the deep structure into the surface structure. And so then came along Bandler and Grinder or Grinder, I'm not sure. I've never been sure of that. John Grinder or John Grinder and Richard Bandler, who came up with NLP in the first place. NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. And they went and studied lots of different therapists and found that the very best ones, I think they came up with 3. There was Milton Erickson, Virginia Satir, and someone else who I'm forgetting about now. But in any case, they modeled these therapists and tried to do what they did. And in doing so, they found out that they used the language very effectively. They made a connection between Noam Chomsky's deep structure and surface structure, transformational grammar, and between that and what the therapists were doing. And they created the meta model, and then they went and they created the Milton model as well. Now, just to confirm, the meta model of NLP seeks clarity, right? So it seeks to find the information in the deep structure and bring it into awareness, right? That is the meta model. The Milton model does the opposite. It uses vagueness, and they're both very good, but with self-coaching, you want to use the meta model, because this is the kind that will encourage you to become more aware, become self-aware of what you're really thinking, right? If you want clarity, use the meta model so that you can really understand yourself on all levels. Now, sometimes coaches will use the Milton model when they're working with a client. They'll use vagueness in order to change someone's mindset, to shift the way someone is thinking, right? But that's not what we're focusing on here. We're focusing on the meta model and how to understand when you distort, when you delete, when you generalize in order to raise your self-awareness. You should be able to gain a deeper understanding of your own thought processes. So let's start with deletion. Now, there are many kinds of deletion, many kinds of distortion, and there are different kinds of generalizations as well. So I'm going to give you a few examples of each one. So simple deletion is the first one. Now, if I say I'm angry, then let's use you, right? So if you say to yourself, you're catching yourself saying or thinking the words, I'm angry. Stop right there and ask yourself, how do you know you're angry? How do you know? Very important question. And don't just say, I know I'm angry. I feel angry. Well, how? How do you know? What is it that you're feeling? What is it that you're thinking that lets you know that you feel angry? And how do you know that you're not something else? How do you know that you're not upset? What's the difference there between angry and upset? And of course, there's what are you angry about, right? So this is simple deletion. The next one is deletion of adverbs, right? Or deletion of meaning using adverbs. So what is the adverb that you're using deleting? So if you say, obviously, they don't like my attitude. Well, what's obvious about it? Who is it obvious to? Right? And what made it obvious? Is it obvious to you or obvious to other people? And how do you know? Okay. So when you use an adverb like that, go into it. The next one is unspecified referential index. Unspecified referential index. What is this? It's when you say something like, they don't like the way I do things. They don't like the way I do things. So if you're saying that to yourself, then who is it? Who is they? You've unspecified. You've not specified who they are, right? So who is it? And how do you know that they don't like the way you do things? And what way are you doing things? What things, right? You're not specifying these things. So this is an unspecified referential index. You don't need to remember the names of all these things, but remember the principles and remember to ask yourself these questions. What are you really, bring that into your awareness. What are you really communicating to yourself or communicating with other people, right? What's the deep structure there? The next one is comparative deletion. So if you say the way I do it is better, or the way they're doing it is better. Better than what? Better than who? Right? You're using a comparative there, but you're not specifying what you're talking about. The next one is unspecified verbs. So this is causing problems in my relationship. Okay, this is causing problems in my relationship. Your relationship with who? And how is it causing problems? How do you know that that's the cause? And what are you talking about? Again, okay? The next one is nominalization. Now, the reason I've put these two together is because when you say something like relationship, you're creating a noun there out of a verb. The verb is relating, right? To relate to someone else. So when you say this is causing problems in my relationship, you're creating this verb of relating into a noun, right? That's what you're doing. You're making it a noun. A relationship doesn't really exist, right? It's just a series of several incidences of relating to someone else. This is a relationship, but you're summarizing, generalizing all of it into this thing that you call a relationship, right? So if you notice yourself doing that, you can ask yourself something like, what about the way in which you are relating is causing problems or is causing you problems, right? What is it about this relationship? What part of this relationship? Turn it into a verb so that you notice how it is you're thinking, right? The next one, and this is one that so now we're on to distortion, right? So the next one, those were all the deletions. So make sure that you fill in the information. Because you tend to delete a lot of information when you bring it up to the surface. So make sure you bring it into your awareness. What is it that you've deleted? What's the what, who, when, where, why, how, right? So now distortion. How do we distort things in life, in ourselves, the information that we give ourselves? Mind reading. This is one of my favorite ones to talk about, okay? It's a sentence like, when I talk, my boss is judging me. When I talk, my boss is judging me. How do you know that? Do you know what your boss is really thinking? Can you read their minds? No, you can't. But you assume that you can. You project what they're thinking into them, right? But it's in your mind. That's in your mind. So make sure that you know that this is all happening in your mind, and then ask yourself, how do you even know? Or like, what makes you think that they might be judging you? Okay, and think about that a little clearer, because that's a distortion. Another distortion is lost performative. A lost performative. This is when you say something like, well, good people understand what I'm saying, right? Good people understand me. So this is a value judgment on someone else. A value judgment without identifying who is doing the judging. Right? Good people understand me. You're saying good people, but this is a value judgment. You're judging them as good, and you are making your judgment king or queen, right? Top of the mountain. That is the objective truth suddenly, because you're saying they're good people because they believe you, right? It's also a circular argument there. And if you don't know about circular arguments, check my video on logical fallacies. Right. The next one is cause-effect distortion. So if you say something like, the way she looks at me drives me crazy. How do you know that the way she's looking at you drives you crazy? How do you know that that was the cause of the effect of you going crazy, if you're going crazy? Right. The next one is complex equivalence. If you get an email from someone and it's very short, right? You email them a letter and then they email you back a really short, brief letter, right? And you say, His message was so brief. He must be angry with me. Well, this is also a distortion of reality, because how do you know that his short email means that he's angry? And even if he is angry, how do you know he's angry with you? How do you know that there is a direct cause and effect there? Again, there's a cause and effect, but instead it's a complex equivalence, we call it. Might he not have been angry at something else or someone else or at himself? Might he not have been busy rather than angry? Have you ever done that? Have you ever written a short email or a short message because you were busy? Did that mean that you were angry at the person that you were sending it to? No. So this is a distortion. The last distortion I have for you is a presupposition. So let's take the sentence, why don't you start thinking about what you're going to do with your life? Why don't you start thinking about what you're going to do with your life? The person who is saying that is presupposing that you have not been thinking about this, that you haven't even started your life, right? I'm presupposing that that you haven't been thinking about it, but also that you haven't even been living in the first place. So what are you presupposing when you use sentences, when you use language to talk to yourself or to talk with other people? What are you presupposing in your language? Look at what you might be assuming, because this can reveal holes in your awareness. Now let's move on to generalizations. A universal quantifier. This is when you say something like, I'm always angry. I'm always angry. You're always angry? Are you sure you're always angry? Are you angry when you're sleeping? Are you angry when you are taking a shower? Are you angry every second of the day? This is a generalization, right? And it's a universal quantifier. So if you use always or never, something like that. Another one, big one, is a modal operator of necessity or probability. So modal operators, modal auxiliary verbs are like can, should, could, would, might, may, must, right? These ones. If you say something like, I can't wake up on time, is that true? Is it that you can't? Have you ever woken up on time? Or if you say, I must be crazy. I must be crazy. Have you ever said that to yourself? Oh, I must be crazy. You must be? Is there any other alternative? Right? And you might think that this is petty stuff, that this doesn't matter, but it does matter. Because when you use this language, you set precedents in your own thought processes. It's like when you have a field and every day you're pushing a wheelbarrow around this field. Pretty soon the field will have tracks where you're used to pushing that wheelbarrow, right? And it becomes difficult to get off of that track because the wheelbarrow is following the track. But if you try and steer it away from that track, it's kind of uphill and it's a push. So don't fall into these patterns where you start thinking this certain way, where the language that you've created dictates the way you think, because that's what will happen. Questioning your own language will bring you a greater awareness of yourself, a greater awareness of your own thought processes. And with greater awareness comes greater decision-making skills. And you can start to rise above all of these deletions, distortions, generalizations, right? Because you'll be able to see through them using the meta model. And this awareness, this consciousness will reduce your inner conflict because you'll be conscious of the greater picture, the bigger picture involved. You will make clearer decisions and you will have a fuller picture of who you are. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and share it on social media so that it can help other people as well. And if you want more videos like this, click that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you know when I post new videos. I also have a podcast called Identity Coaching with Movies, where I use movies as coaching tools for your personal development. You can find my podcast on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or directly on my website, GabrielSeanWallace.com. I have a link to my website in the description below, and on it you can read my blog. You can learn more about identity coaching and creativity coaching. And if you're interested in getting one-to-one coaching with me, or you know someone else who is, then you can learn more about it there and contact me via the website. You can also take a look at my creativity course, my 18-hour creativity course that will help you to access your inner creator and skyrocket your creativity and innovation so that you can apply it in any project in your life, including, my friend, the grandest project of them all, yourself. You can find that creativity course on my website or directly in the description below. There's a link. Okay, my friend, keep growing into you.